Good evening everybody and welcome then to the first stream on the newly founded Low Fuel Motorsport channel. My name is John Watts and I have the excitement and privilege to bring you the round 6 action then of the LFM Pro Series here at Suzuka as we approach the midway point in the season. Last time out we were at Hungary for round 5 where it was Jaroslav Honzik that ended up taking the honours ahead of championship leader Marco Bischoff, and then Noah Eder completing the podium. Jaroslav and Marco both being the drivers leading the front of the championship standings, and it's going to be a little bit tough for the likes of Darren King, Samir Fock, Teemu Karppinen to make some inroads, but that maybe will change today if they can put it all together at this circuit. And speaking of which, let's have a little bit of a tour then of where we will be racing tonight. So, Suzuka then, 18 turns of absolute pure adrenaline rush enjoyment down into the first corner. Very exciting name, but certainly a very exciting one to drive. Lots of commitment through there. And then into the S-curves of 3, 4, 5 and 6. As you continue to make your approach up the hill, you make your way through turn 7 of Dunlop Curve and then through the Degners. Lots of commitment needed through here in a car that you want to be committed and comfortable over those bumps. Climbing further up the hill into 10 and then the hard braking zone of 11. Might see some overtaking opportunities there. Up through 1200 Rs, we then circle round Spoon Curve and then start to begin the descent down the hill. Treacherous corner then, and probably the most famous on the circuit, 130R. And then into Casio Triangle through the last corner and then down the start-finish straight to complete the lap. So always a very exciting lap around here and really pushes these drivers to the ragged edge. Typically, as a little bit of additional chaos, the likes of the Mercedes have quite often been rather troublesome to get around this circuit, particularly 130R can be quite treacherous, but if you can hook it up, you have a very, very fast car underneath you. Also, talking about the cars and thinking about championship leaders, those in the Porsches. We've seen the Porsches be very, very quick at this circuit before. It has the acceleration, the braking capability, and the agility. But at the crucial moments when you need to defend, when you need to attack, we know how much of a hampering effect the top speed deficit that the Porsche has can be for some of these drivers. But these are some of the very best, so undoubtedly the likes of Marco Bischoff will have accounted for that, and we'll see just what they can do tonight. And speaking of our drivers then participating in tonight, who can we expect on the grid? Well, we of course have our main contenders for the championship, so of course that gives us everything we need for an exciting battle. So we have the likes of Darking, Alexander Smolia, Marco Bischoff, Samir Fock, Jaroslav Honzik, Joris Appel, Vasily Onufriev, Mattia De Campo, Eric Del Fanta, Tinker van der Velde has been away for a couple of rounds but is coming back for Suzuka. Philip Menard, Sasha Vassner, Hendrik Mischke, Noah Eder, Teemu Karppinen, Justin Hartkemper, Leon Berndt, Brewer Medra, Maximilian Detchik, Noah Heron, Darren McCormack, race winner earlier on in the season as well, so expect big things from him. Maybe not up there outright in the championship standings at the moment, but will undoubtedly be very, very rapid today. Driving the Audi as well, so it'll be interesting to see how that gets around here at Suzuka. Then Konstantin Solstov, Luke Addison, Marcus Marquezing, Ryan Renoir, Otso Olila, Alessio Melis, Sergei Vilchinsky, and Alexander Zaitsev to round out our top tier split. High elo stuff for these guys tonight as well. So we are going to have some absolutely phenomenal drivers on circuit, and of course phenomenal drivers always provides us with phenomenal action. Combine that with a circuit like Suzuka where we have overtaking opportunities for days, we are going to be in for 90 minutes of goodness. And Speaking of which, we're going to have a couple of minute practice, 15-minute qualifying, and then 90 minutes of racing. In the LFM Pro Series, we have some races with 60 minutes and then some with 90, and we have the latter this evening, which just gives us an extra 50% of golden opportunity for things to get interesting. Looking at the weather, looking at a fairly mild 21 degrees, certainly compared to where I am in the UK at the moment. That seems like a rather cool, a breezy day. And then we've got a bit of overcast at 25%, 10% chance of rain, but most crucially 30% chance of changeable conditions. And Suzuka, obviously set in the heart of Japan, well known to really go between big extremes of weather. So we'll have to see whether or not that factors into today, and if it does, how much of an additional challenge that looks to present for our drivers. So the server should be coming online fairly shortly, and we will look to make our way in. Also, as a little bit of a fair warning, I do apologise in advance for perhaps a few clunky transitions here and there. I'm doing all of this on a single monitor, so sometimes it gets a little bit awkward to make our way between each section, but hopefully the server will be up in just a moment. We can start getting into the action. And also, just before we then head into the server, if you are new to Low Fuel Motorsport, then this is the Pro Series, but that is not all that LFM has to offer. Daily racing with seasoned licenses, safety rating, all the goodness to really end up with an absolutely fantastic day-to-day multiplayer competitive experience. So if you want to get involved in that, then do head over to lowfuelmotorsport.com, get yourself signed up, and you can be on track with some of these guys potentially within minutes, and then work your way up the licenses and see whether or not you can join some of these guys in the Pro Series. If you want to stay up to date with all of the news and action from LFM, then do consider following LFM on Twitter and Instagram. Links are in the description. And if you want to join the community, talk to some of those that are already part of LFM, and just talk about sim racing, motorsport, everything that we love about this sort of side of life, then do also consider joining the Discord server as well. So, hopefully, if I look to have a check-in on the server now, we might be ready to go. So, bear with me, folks, for just 30 seconds or so. So, server is up and online, so we will be seeing action very, very shortly as we look to then make our way in and see what joyous racing lies ahead of us this evening then. So, just the practice time at finishing for the time being. So we will be underway then with qualifying very, very soon. And let's look at some of the cars that we have. So, we're going to have a mixture of all of the manufacturers. Pretty good spread, actually, this evening. We've got a few BMWs, some Ferraris, decent chunk of Porsches, see a Mercedes, even got a rare McLaren. That's a common car in previous seasons and BOPs of racing. We don't quite see it as much anymore, but people are managing to still extract some decent pace from that car. And we've also got a Honda in here as well. Quite a car to try to manhandle around this circuit, but a good amount of power under. Well, I was going to say under the bonnet. Realistically, more under the boot in that car. But yeah, so very, very quick. So we are making our way into qualifying now. So I shall look to get us moved across. There we go. So all things being well, then we are now in qualifying, hoping to see some fantastic stuff on track. I have no doubt that we will. And let's play around a bit with some of our joyous overlays that we have. ACC TV, fantastic piece of software and a huge asset to LFM as well. As we shall bring up all these guys' deltas then as they look to start making their way around this circuit for the first time this evening then, and we start to get ourselves ready for the action that we have ahead of us. It will be Teemu Karppinen in the number 15 BMW that will be the first to tackle the Suzuka race circuit then, and have to see what Teemu can do. Currently sitting in P3 in the standings, so we'll be looking to get a good result around here today. And let's see what he can do as he tackles this circuit for the first time. So let's head inside the cockpit then, if we can choose a cockpit camera, there we go, and see what it's like then to throw a car around here at Suzuka. Heading down then towards turn 1 and 2 for the first time, swinging it into the apex, trying to get it tucked in, and you see him dancing with the steering wheel then, and then get on the power as early as you dare. Use all of the exit curb as you then swing yourself back across for the S's. This BMW fairly comfortable at taking some of these curves, but you do still have to be careful as they can hook you across very, very quickly. Really want to use all of these curves to try to pitch the car around in these corners, then set yourself up for the run through Dunlop then as we start to make our way further up the hill, carrying all of that momentum then through towards turn 8 then of the first and second deckers. Take that chunk of curb. Nicely done there from Teemu, and just a safe and composed run so far, using all of the exit curb then out of turn 9 as he then sets himself up for the kink of 10, break in a straight line, and then get yourself hooked into the camber of this hairpin. So important. And you'll see a lot of drivers playing around with their brake settings, their traction control settings, just for that one corner to absolutely maximize the hard braking and heavy acceleration zone that they have through there. Then through 12, excuse me, and then up into Spoon, and not taking maybe all of the exit curb that you could in the middle of Spoon there, but can be a tricky one, can sometimes have a habit of pulling the car out to the right hand side, then taking the shortest run down the back straight as he heads towards the most dangerous and feared corner on this circuit of 130. I absolutely chuck it in with as much speed as you dare. Use the exit curve. Really got to be careful about track warnings, and then hard on the brakes for Casio Triangle over the curves and a bit more, and then just use that tiny little bit of AstroTurf as you then make your way to the start finish line. And that is a brilliant example of a lap around here of Suzuka, and from Teemu, first time round be a 58.795, and we'll have to see what other drivers can do as they start to make their way to the line for the first time. Smolia sits in P2 for the time being on a 59.2. Appel ends up just taking that immediately away from him on a 58.9. So it looks like the effort that we've had so far from Karppinen is a pretty good one as a first bank. We'll have to see who else can potentially challenge for that as we now start to get our flurry of deltas that gives us a good indication of the sort of pace and lap everybody is on, as Jardier then P2 in the standings, race winner last time's out, goes up to provisional pole on a 58.6, and then Darren King goes in P3 on a 58.8. So we have a flurry of BMWs right now leading this field, followed up by a couple of Audis. And right now, Porsche's nowhere to be seen, but Bischoff, I see, is on a pretty big lap at the moment, if I can find him, of course. And there we go, he goes to provisional pole for the time being, takes that by 0.02 of a second. So despite that speed deficit on the back straight, the Porsche still able to find good pace around here, and we know that Marco will be looking to extract absolutely everything from that car as Jardier brings out a brief yellow flag and pulls off the circuit to have a look at his tyre pressures. Let's also check in with Darren King because he is currently 0.3 of a second up on his previous best, which could see him jump up the order considerably. Alexander Smolia as well, 0.7 up. In fact, I think Smolia is a bit further along the lap. Oh, that was a big cut, though, on the final part of the track, so I'm not sure that this lap is going to be valid. It would have been theoretically good enough for provisional pole. He's run it close towards the line, and it's going to still be valid, so I'm very surprised by that. I thought he'd taken way too much curb into the final corner, but Alexander Smolia then in the Ferrari does a 58.4 and headbutts the wall for good measure as well. Where is Darren King at the moment coming through to the final couple of corners? He's found half a second. That would be potentially good enough to snatch. He's lost a little bit of momentum on the exit though, but can the BMW storm to the top of the timesheets? He's getting the slipstream from the car in front, but it's going to be very tight and it's not quite good enough. Just under a tenth away from Smolia, as Carpenter also improves but ends up dropping half a tenth of a second back as well. Also got Vassner on a big improvement further down the order, coming to the line 17th for the time being. Where can the Audi go using all of that straight line speed that we know that car has as he runs towards the line? Now be a good enough improvement to go all the way out to P7, so even 0.4 of a second then can see you go from way down into the top 20 to a decent chunk up into the top 10. So big changes for position for quite a small amount at the moment, which makes it all the more exciting. We've got Luke Addison as well on a big lap. That was very wide. I think he's invalidated that one, so slight commentator curse for him, but Luke has got 7.5 minutes then to try to have another go. And see, we've got Soldatov on a big lap further down as well, almost a second up on his time in the BMW. See if the camera will eventually switch over to his car, and we do eventually catch up with him. Has lost a chunk of time though, so I'm not sure if he made a mistake on the run up towards the hairpin, but he's lost about 0.4 of a second, so it's not going to be quite as much of an improvement as he would have been hoping for on this lap around, but will still be good enough potentially to get himself up towards the top 10. He's right on the border at the moment to break into the 1 minute 58. So I have to see what he can potentially do. What pace can he extract out of the BMW? As Alexander Smolia still on provisional pole in that Ferrari, and that's a big time there from Smolia, and that really has shaken up the order at the front. As Soldatov then will run towards the line. He's been able to mostly maintain this advantage. Good exit actually out the final corner. Will be a half a second improvement, and that is going to see him jump all the way up to P7 as he slots in just behind Darren McCormack, our lead Audi. So big improvement then, purple in the final sector for Soldatov. But Marco Bischoff is travelling very quickly himself, quarter of a second up. It could be good enough to maybe snatch pole if he can just about eke out enough speed, and it is by the absolute tightest of margins then, 0.5 of a second in favour of our championship leader, and that is exactly what he needs to do if he wants to walk away from here today, extending his advantage. Got Nufriev further down, another one of our BMWs, and like and subscribe. Team car number 7 then goes a little bit deep on the entry to Casio Triangle, gets it nicely squared up though for the exit, and will run towards the line. Doesn't take so much of a tight line, but it's still a big improvement of almost half a second. So where will this see the number 7 car jump up to? And it's good enough for P7 as well. So every car that we see outside the top 10 seems to slot into that P7 position at the moment. But big things there from him. I see Noah Eder on a big improvement as well in the Porsche. 0.3 up for Noah. Also the Honda of Leon Burnt is on a big step up as well, 0.3 of a second. We've got some of our drivers also down at the bottom of the field as well to see a big jump up the order. So it's going to be a flurry of times coming in very shortly. So many drivers improving, and we still have just under 5 minutes of qualifying left to go. To answer some of the questions in the chat, yes, this is absolutely split one. This is the fastest drivers that we have on LFM right now, giving it everything that they have around the Suzuka race circuit. And for these animations, that is the responsibility of ACC TV. Link to all of the LFM sponsors are in the description. Noah Eder, 0.6 of a second up. This could be a big time, and he slots into P7 as well, maintaining our record for that. Jardier, who has also found just over a 10th in the opening sector, and that would see him manage to potentially get into the top 4. He's going to need to find a little bit more, though, if he wants to challenge Marco Bischoff, championship leader, and that is the driver that he will be keeping a big eye on, as he's almost 0.2 of a second up. If he can maintain that coming out of the hairpin, he's lost a little bit of time on the exit there, so Jardier not quite managing to do what he would be wanting to do to really push for the front. Darren King, though, very, very quick as well in the opening part of the lap, I think that is, so we'll have to keep an eye and see how he goes, because he hasn't got so much more to find in the field to try to see him jump up to the top of the timesheets. I'm not sure that there is a Bentley, unfortunately. I've seen one Honda, a Mercedes, and we've actually got a couple of Hondas and a couple of McLarens. I think, though, sadly, and much to my disappointment, that I'm not convinced that we have a Bentley in the field this evening. But hopefully in due course, with various BOP changes, that may change. Jaroslav Hongza then setting himself up for another lap by the looks of it. Should still be an improvement, and will get into the top 3, I believe, as he heads towards the line. And he does slot into P3, 0.5 of a second then away from Alexander Smolia. But let's have a look at Darren King. P3 in the standings, purple in Sector 1. And travelling very, very quickly at the moment, almost 0.2 of a second up. If he can keep this pace up all the way to the line, this could be a big, big time, as he gets a huge amount of time on the exit of Spoon Curve, then 1/4 of a second, and still gaining on the back straight. So this is a big lap time then from the number 1 car on the grid. These numbers, of course, corresponding to the LFM ELO. Darren King throwing everything at it, barely staying within track limits, almost loses the car as he heads towards Casio Triangle. Can he get it stopped? That looked neat and tidy. If he can get it all nice and square on the exit, this could be a huge lap then from Darren King. 0.3 of a second up. I think it's going to be good enough for pole. It may even be a 58.2 if he can carry it all the way to the line. As he hits the line, it is a 58.225 for Darren King, and with 90 seconds left on the clock, that is a big, big time. Did lose a little bit of time in the final sector in the end, but that is a gauntlet and a half. Darren McCormack has found 0.2 of a second in the first sector in what was our lead Audi. Joris Appel puts in his final effort to slot into P6 just up ahead, but Darren McCormack, previous race winner in this season of the LFM Pro Series, and currently looking very, very fast. It's going to has to find a chunk more time if he wants to try to challenge potentially for the very front of the field, but certainly is on an improvement at the moment that could see him get inside of the top 5. Meanwhile, Karppinen can't find any more, so the driver that set the pace on fire at the very beginning has had to come into the pits. We've also got Marco Bischoff on an improvement, finding a bit of time. It's found over a 10th as well, so Marco not letting go of that potential pole position. Darren King hasn't found an improvement, still on his lap, but hasn't been able to find any additional time as of yet. But Darren McCormack has continued to find time, 0.3 of a second up as he heads towards Casio Triangle, then potentially for the penultimate time. Marco Bischoff also going very, very quickly at the moment. That is absolutely rapid pace, potentially, from our championship leader. The Audi, though, heading towards the line, the number 21 car, as he then looks to get a little bit of slipstream from the cars up ahead. McCormack will jump up to P4, but let's have a look at Marco Bischoff, because he is 3.5 up on his lap, and this is absolutely lightning pace with Darren King unable to improve on this lap. If Marco can bring this one to the line, this could absolutely set the timing screens on fire. The number 3 Porsche coming around Spoon then for the final time. Nice exit and continuing to find time, almost 0.4 of a second up on his previous lap. This will be challenging to break into the 57s if he can hook it all together, which would absolutely be a brilliant effort. Not many other drivers further down the field able to improve. Jardier finding himself in P3, 0.005 of a second down on Marco's previous effort, but I think Marco Bischoff is going to absolutely smash that one as the Porsche heads towards the line for the final time. The championship leader, Marco Bischoff, looking to lay down the gauntlet here at round 6 at Suzuka, and he hits the timing beam. It's good enough for pole. It's not a 58.7, but purple in the first 2 sectors sees him gets down to a 58.0, and that is a benchmark and a half then for the rest of this grid to try to match. That is an absolutely huge time then by our championship leader to take pole position for round 6. So brilliant, brilliant stuff there from Marco Bischoff as he does exactly what he needed to do in that qualifying session. So we will look to have a bit of a review of the qualifying results in just a moment. As waiting for those to update. And then we shall be making our way in for 90 minutes of racing then here at Suzuka. So I'm just waiting for the time being for those results to come through. But in terms of a brief summary of the main things then from that qualifying session, Marco Bischoff absolutely on fire for that qualifying. And there we go. It was Marco Bischoff then to take pole position for round 6. Darren King slotting himself up into P2. Jardier, man, P2 in the standings, has that ominous BMW, the number 1 car, between himself and his championship rival. Darren McCormack managed to get himself up into P4. And Alexander Smolyar, after setting the timing screens on fire earlier on in the session, only managing P5, but still a very, very good effort in the Ferrari. A couple of drivers maybe a little bit further out of position than we would have expected, likes of Tinko van der Velde, Soldatov, Luke Addison, all finding themselves outside of the top 10. Samir Fock as well, down in 22nd position. So, not quite what they would have been hoping to achieve, but still a very good effort nonetheless. So we shall start to make our way through the grid in just a moment. There we go then, Marco Bischoff starting in P1, and then Darren King in the number 1 car, starting just behind him on the front row. Jardier then starting in P3, doing a very good job in the BMW there, and then starting in P4 just behind him, Darren McCormack, race winner earlier on this season as well, and a solid effort in the Audi. Then Alexander Smolyar did a good job in the end with the Ferrari to start in P5, whilst in P6 then we have Teemu Karppinen, wasn't able to quite improve in the end to go further up the order. Then Joris Appel just behind, starting in P7, good effort there from him. And then our first Mercedes, Philip Minard, with a good effort in the number 11 car. Noah Eder then, teammate to Marco Bischoff starting in P9, with Eric Del Fanta then rounding out our top 10 in the next one of our Audis. We then have Vasily Onufriev in another of the BMWs, one of two like and subscribe BMWs, one just in the picture immediately behind, and Tinko van der Velde in the McLaren then starting in P12. Good effort in that car, which is clearly struggling a little bit in terms of the BOP. Konstantin Solstov then starting in P13, with the first of our Hondas, Leon Berndt, in the number 17 car to start P14 then, with Luke Addison, teammate then to Darren King, who's on the front row, the 23 car, starting in P15. Sergei Vilchinsky starting just behind in P16 in the number 28 car, with Sasha Vassner starting 17th in the Audi. And then just behind, the number 8 of Mattia De Campo in the Porsche. May struggle potentially in the mid-pack to make up positions in that car as we start to make our way around for the formation lap. So we should hopefully just about get through everyone before we finish going through the grid. Alila starting P20, and then P21 we have Justin Hartkamper, in the number 16 car. Samuel Fock then in the Ferrari, down in 22nd position, perhaps further down than we would have been expecting then for the live stream. And then Hendrik Mischke then in 23rd, with Marcus Marksing in 24th in the 24 BMW. Then we have Bruya Madra in the Porsche, starting in 25th position, with a bit of a hello from one of the BMWs, and then Alessio Melis starting in 26th. Detchik then will be the number 19 McLaren, the second of our two McLarens, and then the boss man of LFM himself, Boris Schulk, in the 28th position, then starting in the number 30 car. Then Alexander Zaitsev in the 29 BMW to start in P29, and then rounding out the grid, Ryan Renoir then will be at the back of the field. So then, that is our grid for today, and as we now make our way to what undoubtedly will be an absolutely electric race around here for 90 minutes then of action at Suzuka. We will be having some fantastic action. Also, as a little bit of an interesting point then for these guys to tackle, they will have one mandatory pit stop. There is a pit stop window during this race as well, and they will need to do a little bit of refueling to make that pit stop. So we may see some potential changes of strategy during the race. Some maybe going for a bit of a splash and dash, some going for a more conventional strategy. And of course, in 90 minutes worth of racing, we have the weather to factor into this as well. Track and air temperature a little bit higher than perhaps we were expecting, and fairly low winds. So these guys may have 90 minutes of dry running, but can never rule out the Japanese weather system for potentially causing some interesting and exciting developments during the course of this race. But even if it does remain dry, we have some of the absolute quickest drivers on ACC that start to bring themselves into formation now, as we see the slight chaos of everybody merging into one another until they briefly sort themselves out. You see those drivers further at the back catching up. And watch these front four at the very start. Marco Bischoff, good acceleration, of course, in that Porsche at the beginning of the acceleration phase from the green lights going out. But that Audi of Darren McCormack is rapid in a straight line, so we'll have to wait and see what he can potentially do. Let's see what Marco does as we wait for lights to go green. To apologise there, I think OBS briefly disconnected, but I do think we are back live again as Marco Bischoff then in number 3 car will lead them away towards turn 1. It's a good start though from Darren King on the outside, who's going to try challenging him in towards turn 1. BMW versus Porsche, and the Porsche is going to come out on top, and Darren McCormack slots into P3, maybe even P2. That'd be brilliant if we can do it. A little bit of contact there between the BMWs. Jardier managing to keep his nose just about clean, as then a little bit of contact further back as well, where Marco Bischoff, our championship leader, then manages to lead the pack away and starts to break away immediately. Looking a bit further down the order, we got side-by-side action with the likes of Soldatov and Leon Burns. Luke Anderson getting involved in that as well, but everyone just about managing to keep it pointing in the right direction. I haven't seen any major incidents so far, as that Soldatov saying a little bit of a hello to the dirt, just about managing to pull that one back together, and we'll have other cars for company as they head towards the Degners. But out in front then, championship leader Marco Bischoff is doing everything that he needs to do right now, and Jardier then slipping behind Darren McCormack at the beginning of this race, and that is not going to help his championship hopes. And we did see a little bit of bumping between those cars. Hopefully not too much damage then for some of these drivers, as I think Sacha Vasta's had a little bit of an excursion. Same for some drivers further down, but generally speaking, clean start then at the beginning of this race as they look to complete this lap for the first time then. Darren King has not let go of the back of that Porsche gearbox, absolutely hunting down our current race leader as Marco goes very, very wide. 130R needs to be careful not to get drive-through penalties, especially track warnings this early on can be absolutely incredibly detrimental to race performance. But look at Darren King. He is absolutely on the heels of that Porsche. He's already looking to try to make a move down towards turn 1 then potentially. We'll see if we can catch it from the BMW, and he does. He goes breezing on by, and Darren King then leads in towards turn 1 on just a second lap of this race, and that really puts a spanner in the works then for Marco Bischoff. He was looking to run away with this one and extend his championship lead, but Darren King has something to say about it, and he was already looking feisty today in the pre-race stream comments he was making. That's exactly what he has done. Darren McCormack in the meantime coming under pressure from the two BMWs, with Alexander Smollett just a little bit further back. But the Audi, for the time being, holding on to that position. Fantastic stuff there from our leaders, as Darren King really pulling away already. And right now, even in this middle part of the lap where the Porsche is absolutely rapid, Marco Bischoff just does not seem to have an answer for the initial pace that Darren King is showing, as he looks to try to extend that advantage. We've got a bit of a battle for the outside positions of the top 10 then, as Van der Velde looking to try to make his way up the order in the McLaren. Maybe a car that struggles here today, but he'll be doing everything that he can, being chased down by the Honda of Leon Byrne. And that Honda will be very, very pacey down these back straights, but I think he's a little bit too far back for the time being. Maybe someone that can have a go. The Mercedes of Philip Menard hunting down the Audi of Joris Appel just up ahead. Mercedes, not a comfortable car to take through 130R like that, but managing to keep it neat and tidy for the time being, as he then gets hard on the power. And see what that straight line difference then is between himself. Has always been a bit of a change further down. Eric Del Fanta losing positions, and that's Leon Byrne going around the outside, and I think he's going to have Soldatov trying to go down the inside as well, as they all head down towards turn 1. And we have got 3 wide towards the first corner. Who is going to come out on top? The Honda sweeps around the pair, and Soldatov has to back out of that one. Del Fanta then, I think, made a mistake coming out of Casio Triangle, and in the end only lost the 1 position, but that got very dicey for just a moment, almost as much as this 3-way fight for the tail end of the podium positions. Jaroslav Honzig continuing to put pressure onto the Audi, takes a tighter line going up through Dunlop Curve. will be fighting against that power disadvantage that we know that the BMW, almost any car fundamentally has against the Audi. I think the only car that may be able to compete with it on the straights would be the likes of the Jag, and that drives like a boat, so we don't see it all too often, which is a shame because it makes an absolutely phenomenal noise. But Jardia then continuing to put pressure on the Audi, but can't afford to make too much of a mistake because Karppinen right behind him. And speaking of which, Marco Bischoff continuing to sustain pressure onto our current race leader, as we've got a little bit of jousting potentially between Vassner and Vilchinski just up ahead. The Audi using all the power going up the hill, thinks about a move towards the inside of Spoon, but just can't make that one stick just yet. But maybe we'll be able to set something up going down towards 130R. That'd be a bold move if he can make it stick. Let's see as we go on board the front bumper then of this Audi. How much does he gain down this back straight? I don't think it's going to be quite enough. Not as much as he would have been hoping. And then a lot of commitment through there as a white flag that's just come out up ahead. That was for Minar. I'm not sure if there was a mistake there. I think maybe the game being a little bit sensitive, but we've got a very quick, tight tussle between our podium drivers as Jarnier tries to go down the inside. It's being pushed forward by Teemu Karppinen. He's trying to use that to his advantage. There's contact between them, and Jarnier just about manages to keep it on the circuit. Darren McCormack sent towards the outside then, and Karppinen see if he can follow Jarnier through, but he's going to be unable to do so. McCormack, may have something to say about it. There was just a bit of contact between the pair of them. It got very, very tight heading down towards turn 1. But the man P2 in the standings does get through into the podium positions then. But maybe not the cleanest of overtakes. Jardy, of course, always very fair and clean racer. Never wants to make contact, so I'm sure that was not how he would want to make that pass, and that's now a couple of bumps that he has had, which will be giving his BMW a bit of damage, which is not too advantageous, of course, driving around here. But Jardier then makes his way forward, and he will be rubbing his hands together because looking further up the field, Marco Bischoff has set the fastest lap of this race, not by much, but did take a tenth of a second out of Darren King, and now maybe the tyres on that Porsche just starting to come alive just a bit more and put the BMW under some additional pressure. But for the time being, Bischoff still having to settle for P2 at the moment as he gets a little bit squirrely on the exit. Has to be careful. Another area where you can very easily get track limit warnings. Further down the order, we've got Marcus Marquezing trying to put pressure on Samir Fock, currently in 22nd position. And the BMW then looking to charge his way down this back straight. And I think Sammy is going to have to defend the inside line, potentially going towards 130R. No, the BMW lifts out of it slightly, potentially a wise move, as then Del Fanta brings out the white flag up ahead. Can't see any yellows, so I think that may have just been for potentially going off the circuit. But everyone then managing to make their way through safely once more. Further up the field, action once again going down towards turn 1. Soldatov heads for a move on the inside of Del Fanta, but gets the door shut on him, and now he's got Luke Anderson for company all over the back of that number 22 BMW. But we'll hold on to it for now. You can see as soon as you go to make a move on one car, if you can't get past, it ends up in that concertina effect, the constant compromises they have going on, as Minar is side by side there with Noah Edu trying to go all the way around the outside of the Dunlop curve. That's going to be very, very brave if he can make that one stick. And now they've got Anufriev trying to follow through and take advantage of this, going down towards the first sector. They're still side by side. Anufriev sent onto the gravel but keeps his foot in it, and Noah Edu trying to keep his nose in, and the BMW goes wide on the exit. Now it's still side by side with Minar. The McLaren of Tinko van der Velden's getting involved in this as well, and they're almost 4 wide going towards the hairpin. I think the number 7 car is going to come out on top of this, and the Mercedes is going to be hung out to dry as Van der Velde almost makes contact with the Mercedes, but Minar fights back then using the grunt of that Mercedes up the hill to try to hold on to that position. Great opportunistic driver then from Anufriev to get past, but now we've got the Honda of Leon Byrne battling with Tinko van der Velde, seeing if he can make his way past with great power and speed in that Honda. The number 17 car may have a potential run going down towards 130R. He is very, very close behind, But, of course, these are all in a big slipstream train, and I don't think there's going to be anything that the Honda can do for the time being. But that got very, very racy indeed, and this is what we love in the Pro Series. As I think they will remain as they were for the time being. Just checking in further up, Carpenter then has continued to sustain pressure onto the Audi of McCormack, who's desperately trying to stay in the tow of the BMW just up ahead. See what the straight line speed difference is heading down towards turn 1. Does the BMW have the advantage? Not quite. The Audi has got good legs, although Carpenter finds a way to get his nose on the inside, and he sees if he can follow through, but the Audi says no, and Smolly goes very wide in the background there. That might compromise him and put him under some pressure from Appel, but very good stuff then from all of our drivers. But this fight then for the outside positions of the top 10. 5 cars in the train when the camera will eventually catch up to all of our cars. But look at this, absolutely nose to tail. It's like a constant GT3 snaking its way going up the S's. But as of yet, no one able to find a way through. But as soon as one car gets involved in a battle, it all starts to hot up as Alila has lost a bit of position. I think, actually, no, Samir Fock is the one that's losing the position. The Honda goes steaming through Dunlop curve and goes around the outside of the first Degner then. And Samir now under pressure from the BMW behind. So unable to make his way up from 22nd position, and will stay there for the time being as we've got contact up at the hairpin. There's been several cars involved in that one. We'll see if we can catch that on the replay. What on earth happened there? So going down towards the hairpin, it all got very involved. I think it was between Vassner and the BMW that was just in front. It's the number 16 car by the looks of it. That was Hartkemper. Went side by side in towards 10, made contact on the entry. BMW straight into the wall. The number 12 barely gets it stopped and then comes under pressure from the Porsche in the meantime afterwards, but continuing to lose positions further down. In actual fact, I've pulled up the wrong car, excuse me. I can't see. Oh, what is going on with Noah Ida and Tico van der Velde? So I think there's been contact there at 130R. What happened between those drivers? It was a very tightly packed train, and Tico van der Velde coming under pressure now from... That is Heron trying to go around the outside, and will make up the position. We've got a car coming into the pits as well. That's one of the BMWs that's now left. That was Sergey, and that all kicking off then down at 130. I'm not sure if we'll be able to go back far enough to see what took place. That's Noah Ida on the outside of the corner then. So I think between these drivers, because someone in the chat says clean no more, well, it's always bound to happen eventually with some of these guys. Noah then did come into the pits, but inevitably, when you have these incredibly tight fights going on between these drivers, unfortunately, sometimes contact does end up occurring. But think of Van der Velde and Noah Ida then making some sort of contact at 130R, I believe, and no one being the winner from that. Checking up further up the field then, we've got Bischoff continuing to put pressure on Darren King, but these two have really pulled away then from Jalier. Maybe that damage not being able to put too much pressure on these guys as a result of those bumps in the early laps then. But Carpenter continuing to put pressure onto the Audi of Darren McCormack. Is he going to be able to do anything towards 130R? We'll have to see. BMW hunting him down in the toe, but that Audi is absolutely rapid there. But Darren McCormack getting a little bit wider than he would have been wanting to, and that allows Carpenter to close up a little bit. We've got number 14 car that is out and returned to the pits. That is Noah Ida, so that is goodbye for him today. So unfortunate stuff there for the Porsche driver as McCormack has to defend Carpenter. Which way does he go? Oh, he swings back towards the inside line. That's going to get closed. McCormack shutting the door on him, and Carpenter gets sent towards the outside then. That was a very aggressive defense, but Carpenter maybe able to find a way through into turn 2, and he does. And I'm sure he's not going to be too friendly to the Audi on the exit, and Carpenter then finds a way through. He tried to go to the inside, then to the outside, back to the inside, and then eventually through turn 2 then managed to find a gap. Brilliant racing between those two, but that got very, very close as Marco Bischoff is closing in once more onto the BMW. It does seem like right now that number 3 Porsche is able to put that pressure on the car, although it has dropped back just a little bit. But last time round did take out a couple of tenths of a second. Have to keep an eye and see what Marco can do. Big changes between these cars throughout the lap about which one is faster. The Porsche capitalising on its braking capabilities, its agility, its acceleration. But the BMW, a much better all-rounder, as Soldatov further down, very close to the back of Del Fanta then. As has actually dropped back a little bit and now coming under some potential pressure from Addison as Appel going side by side with Alexander Smolia, go flying down the inside with a slightly battered and bruised front of that Audi then, but using all of that drive up the hill to make up the position and doing that one beautifully. There was nothing that the Ferrari could do about that one then. And Smolia having to drop back as just checking in further up. McCormack hasn't let go of Karppinen and is still letting the BMW know that it is right there. And if we go on board then with McCormack as they head down towards turn 1 once again. Only 15 minutes of this race gone by so far, and we have had so much action already. But the BMW of Karppinen able to maintain that gap for the time being, and the Audi will have to continue to settle for P5. Del Fanta putting pressure onto Leon Burnt down towards turn 1, but not quite having enough grunt and speed in that car to overtake the Honda. Saw a white flag come out for a couple of drivers. I think that was for just clipping bits of grass though, so thankfully no incidents further up for the time being, although further down that's a Lilla that has gone off and been involved in some sort of incident. So what has happened there for the 26 Honda was coming under pressure by the looks of it of the Audi just behind. As they then came down towards turn 1, the Audi closing all the time. And then what happened when they got towards the first corner? There was no contact in the first portion. Oh, just loses it all by himself, and then the Audi managed to just about sneak their way through. So thankfully no additional contact there, but unfortunately Alila then made that mistake all by himself and ends up paying the costly price for that in the end. Having a bit of a look around, Van der Velde, after being involved in that 5-way tussle for the outside top 10 positions, finds himself trying to regain ground on Heron just up ahead in the Audi, but that McLaren's got a few little scuffs on it, and the McLaren and the Ferrari well known to suffer quite a bit when they do start to get aero damage. We've got a Lamborghini in this field as well, driven by Ryan Renoir, looking to put pressure on the Porsche just in front. That's Brouillet in the number 18 car. Let's see, can he gain anything? He is going down towards 130R. Does he think about a move? He pulls out very, very late, almost clips it back, and down the inside is like Alonso and Schumacher from all those years ago as the Lamborghini goes slightly wide on the exit, but the 25 finds a way through. Huge commitment there from the Lamborghini, and the 18 car, the Porsche, ends up having to settle for 25th, but brilliant brave move there from Renoir to see that Lamborghini climb up through the field. Tricky car to extract pace from, as we see the gap between Heron and Van der Velde also being very close, as they've got De Campo for company. The pair of them have closed up on the number 8 Porsche, who does seem to have lost out a little bit in the last couple of laps. In actual fact, Van der Velde was the fastest of this trio. And we've seen these trains get very, very busy already so far this race, and even with the exceptional talent of all of these drivers, sometimes they can just get a little bit too close for comfort and make some contact. They've now dropped back from the Porsche, as it is Heron that's coming under some pressure from Van der Velde, who's looking very, very racy. Of course, extremely quick driver. He's at a bit of a disadvantage, arguably, in that McLaren, but, and especially with that extra damage as well, but is putting on a good showing still nonetheless to try to hunt down that position just in front. But right now it does look like have to settle for 17th Also got this ongoing duel that's been happening now for a few laps between Del Fanta and the Honda of Leon Burnt, who now finds himself coming under more pressure from the Audi. That Honda, good straight line speed down the back stretch. We can just see visibly that Audi absolutely flying as they head towards Casio Triangle. I thought he might be able to gain enough ground to lunge it up the inside, but not just yet. Can he do anything through the triangle, though, to set up a good exit? Looked like Leon maybe went a little bit wide. Can Del Fanta close at all? Heading down this back stretch, the gap opening up, though, once more. And the Honda going to pull to that inside line to try to break that slipstream. Interestingly enough, the Audi not choosing to move with him as Soldatov. That's Heron and the Porsche De Campo coming together then in towards turn 1. De Campo somehow just about manages to hold on to the car there, but as they came steaming down towards turn 1, just the tiniest bits of contact between them, a secondary piece of contact sees the Porsche face the right way, and the number 8 car manages to carry on for the time being, but these margins so close between these drivers as Del Fanta continuing to put pressure then on the Honda as they climb their way up through the field, but it's Soldatov with a huge run coming out of Dunlop Curve. Can't do anything, surely, going down into the first sector as they all take a chunk of curb then and try to fly through that sector. Addison coming into this one as well. Van der Velde was also able to capitalise on that contact. Fanta sends it down towards the inside. That's a huge dive, and it's going to be Soldatov that takes them both as the Honda then tries to come back as they head up towards the hill. That is very close between those two cars. Surely can't find a way through as they then climb up towards Spoon, but it was a huge send from Del Fanta, and in the end it's ended up costing them both positions on Soldatov, who had some fantastic opportunistic driving, not unlike Luke Addison, who goes down the inside at Spoon Curve. The number 9 trying to fight back on towards the outside was going to get very tight towards the gravel, just about keeps his foot in it, and that is have the drag race towards 130R. Addison just about holds on to position, but can the Audi fight back? Goes towards the outside, surely not, and backs out of the throttle then, and Addison will make his way through, but that all started with Del Fanta flying up the inside towards the hairpin, but in the end unable to get the car stopped. Leon went wide as a result as well, and it was Soldatov that capitalised on it all and said thank you very much and went flying through, not unlike Onufriev, who's trying to put a move on Smollier going down towards turn 1. It's a drag race between the two, and the BMW has it done before they even get down towards the braking zone. As Smollier goes very deep, huge slide inside that car, just about managing to hold on to it. Let's see if we can go on board with that. You can see huge amounts of Fast and Furious style handbrakes. Actual fact, Onufriev went very deep as well, and Smollier tried to come back but just couldn't quite get himself into a position to jump back onto the gearbox of the BMW, but in the end Onufriev did do enough to see himself climb up into P7, as then this train just outside the top 10. These positions constantly seem to be very much in high intensity battles as everyone tries to get honours for being top 10 in the Pro Series. The fastest drivers on LFM all giving it absolutely everything then, and we see what happens when it goes just a bit wrong, and there can be big consequences. Just as an update on the front, Bischoff then has done exactly the same fastest lap as Darren King. They've both done a 59.207, but Bischoff has just dropped back a little bit over the last couple of laps and hasn't been able to make any further inroads. So difficult for the Porsche. Did seem to have good strong pace in the earlier phase of the race, although it was Darren King. As Bischoff then brings out the white flag. I thought maybe he'd gone off at 130R, but thankfully not. And our race lead battle still rages on, as Jardier has been slightly caught by Karppinen and Darren McCormack over these last couple of laps, so we could see something hotting up for the podium positions once more, as Del Fanta gets a warning for cutting part of the track. That's an aspect that we've got to factor in to this race as well. Drivers pushing track limits and getting drive-through penalties, of course, very detrimental. Luke Addison has a look towards turn 1, but can't do anything just yet on the number 17 Honda. As further down the order, Marcus Marquezing hunting all over the back of Samuel Fock has been staring at the gearbox of the Ferrari now for quite a few laps. And just look, everywhere you look on this field, there is just such tight battles and margins, even all the way further down the order, where we have recovering Alila trying to reclaim some positions, but for the time being we'll have to settle still for 27th place. Always a gut-wrenching feeling when you get it wrong, as Fock has got it. A huge exit out of Dunlop Curve, trying to put all sorts of pressure onto Hartkamper. Goes very wide on the entry to the first egg. Then we get an absolutely terrible TV view there, but the Ferrari putting further pressure as they head up towards the hill. We saw some of the guys getting involved in contact through turn 10 and into the hairpin before, but thankfully no such issues this time around. They will have Marquezing though for company very shortly if these guys continue to battle intensely. And another fight that we have that keeps on going back and forth. Van der Velde still trying to see if he can make his way past Heron in the Audi just up in front, as does Luke Addison, trying to sustain pressure onto the Honda of Leon. See how much does he gain down this backstretch. We know that the Honda has a good amount of horsepower in it, but goes very, very wide on the exit. Dicey car through 130R. Doesn't necessarily have all the grip that Leon will be hoping. It's a huge kick of oversteer through Casio Triangle, and that might be all the advantage that Addison needs as they then head down towards turn 1 once more in the slipstream. The BMW is definitely going to have an opportunity. Which way does he go? We've seen bits of side-to-side action before, as Solotov actually gives a little bit of toe towards the Honda, but Addison sent towards the outside. Can he hold it around there? That would be absolutely fantastic if he can, but fighting back on the inside is the Honda. Make a little bit of contact in the middle of the apex, and that's still Fanta trying to now get involved in this as well, as he now tries to go around the outside of Addison, who keeps his foot, and it goes down the inside of Honda in towards the S's and gets the move done. And now Leon under pressure from the Audi, trying to see if he can get back past, but he can't. And this has brought Vassner into it as well, as we now got a three-way fight for 13th position, as Del Fanta sustaining the pressure as they head towards Dunlop Curve. Big moment for Vassner just behind, contact between the Audi and the Honda, and the Honda I think is going to lose out just on the outside. And now Heron and Van der Velde find themselves in this out of nowhere. The 26th has brought out the yellow flag in the background. Del Fanta makes his way through. Leon Byrne has to settle the 13th. Heron under pressure once more from Van der Velde. That's a mistake there from Del Fanta out the exit of the second Degner. Can the Honda do anything up towards the hairpin? Looks towards the inside, maybe returning the favour from earlier. That's exactly what Leon has done, but it's not going to be good enough. He doesn't get it stopped in time, and Heron now trying to capitalise on that and see if he can get past back up the hill. But the Honda, I think, may just about have the legs, although that Audi looking very, very fast on the way up. May be able to come back, but I'm not sure he's going to quite have enough as they head up towards Spoon Curve. But that all got very, very busy very, very quickly. And again, every single time that you start to battle with one car, these gaps are so tight together that it really starts to have a concertina effect. And speaking of one of them, Heron now under all sorts of pressure from the McLaren behind, who just cannot gain in the slipstream. See, he's absolutely right firmly there, but unable to get past for the time being. We've got this battle still continuing. Leon very far off the track at 130R. Thinks about it down towards Casio Triangle, but unable to do anything for the time being. We'll have to check in at the front for a moment because Karppinen has managed to reel in the BMW of Jardier. McCormack hasn't been able to go with him. Jardier still holding strong for the time being, as does Darking in the lead of this race. But checking back in with this tussle for 13th position, Del Fanta I think is safe for now. Heron, can he do anything about the Honda? Can Van der Velde do anything about the Audi? Not quite for the time being then, as they make their way through turn 2 once more, absolutely nose to tail. And you can see it looks like the McLaren very much composed through these high-speed corners, but just doesn't quite have the grunt to be able to find his way through at other points around the circuit. And that is exactly the sort of trade-off that you sometimes have with these cars. And if anything, Basta now, who made a mistake when he was involved in this battle, is starting to put Tinko under a bit of pressure. Although we've got De Campo for a little bit of company not too far back as well. He's got a very good run through Dunlop Curve, but won't be able to do anything for the time being. We've now almost got a 7-car train between all of these drivers, as Vassner makes a little bit of a mistake coming out of the second Degner, but still holds on to the position for the time being. Goes deep into the hairpin though. That might give a potential opportunity to the Porsche. But I think when it comes to a battle of horsepower, that Audi is going to have all the legs that it needs to defend that position going up the hill. Minard putting pressure onto Smolia now, who's been dropping down the order throughout this race. The Ferrari really not behaving very well at this stage, as Karppinen still firmly locked onto the gearbox of Jaroslav Honzig, and by far the fastest driver on the last lap. Was 3/10 clear of anyone else in the top three. So Karppinen right now is the man on the move, as McCormack then comes into the pits to serve his pit stop. He obviously feels that he has more pace in the tank. Can Timo do anything down towards turn one? He's looking towards the inside. It's a brave move, but Jarnier can't do anything to fight it. I don't think so. And Karppinen, though, goes through into P3 and sets his sights on charging down the front two of that pack, as Van der Velde also looking to see if he can make a move, going down towards turn one onto the Honda, and now actually having to defend from the Audi of Vassner, who tries to sweep around the outside, but I don't think he's going to have the grip on the road, and he's going to run out, and Van der Velde holds on to the position for the time being. In actual fact, starts to close back up towards the Audi just up in front, but we'll have to keep an eye then on McCormack on when these other drivers start to do their pit stops. Does that undercut strategy work out for him? Because that is fairly early on in this race. As just trying to see whereabouts McCormack has come out. And unless it's my timing board, McCormack, I can't actually see him on my leaderboard, so I actually have a horrible feeling that may have been for a drive-through penalty, as there was a kick of oversteer from Hartkamper, but there's De Campo and Vassner going side by side towards the hairpin. De Campo trying to go all the way around the outside, using that acceleration of the Porsche, see if he keeps his nose in it, but the Audi shuts the door. And then you've got just behind Hartkamper defending hard from Samir Fock, who's been able to close in just a little bit, as these two battling still very hard, as Menard has dropped a position then. So what has happened to Philip Menard, because he was battling with Smolia, he was still with Smolia going up towards the top of the hill towards Spoon Curve, as we get confirmation in the chat then that does look to be a drive-through penalty, as the pit window hasn't quite opened up yet. Smolia defended the inside. Mercedes caught the grass there and just about kept it out of the gravel. Flashes the lights, obviously not happy with Smolia's defending there, and then the BMW, the number 22 car of Soldatov, says thank you very much and goes through. In the meantime, Hartkamper and Samir Fock battling very, very hard between these two, and Marquezing trying to get involved in this as well, as there's going to be a very, very big drag race down towards turn one, I think. Who is bravest under brakes? Samir still having to defend that inside line. The BMW can't do anything on the outside. Can the Audi? No, but maybe lose a position to Marquezing, who's trying to sneak up towards the inside. Very, very close as they go through the middle of the corner, but the BMW finds a way through and muscles his way up into 18th position. Brilliant driving there from him to capitalise on that mistake from... Oh, we've got Bischoff fighting for the lead, so the Porsche has managed to close up on Darking, our race leader then. Oh, as he catches a wheel on the grass up towards the hairpin, just about manages to keep it on the track, but this is allowing Karppinen to reel these two in very, very quickly, and Darking, after being able to lead for so long of this race, has now got our championship leader, Marco Bischoff, all over his gearbox, and the Porsche almost got it completely wrong, going up towards the hairpin. Good car control to keep that one pointing the right way, but the Porsche now, out of these two front-running cars, does seem to be the quicker of the pair, but Karppinen, once again, last time round, the only driver on this circuit to remain in the 59s, so the long-running pace in that BMW behind is very, very quick, but right now it's all about the Porsche trying to hunt down the GTWR BMW just up ahead, the number one car, who's been number one ever since he took the lead in lap 2, and a huge amount of pace from the Porsche heading through 130R, sends it towards the outside. I think Darking will be able to defend unless the Porsche can go down the inside for second part. Casio triangle, that's a very brave move. The BMW just about gives it room as they then have a drag race down towards turn one. Bischoff will be shown the outside, but he goes straight back into the slipstream again, and this is allowing those two BMWs to hunt these pair down and close in on the battle for the lead. Bischoff shows his nose towards turn one again, but unable to do anything. But that was very, very fair and hard racing between these two drivers. But Darking able to withstand the pressure once more from the number 3 car and maintain that race lead. But Carpenter, then look at him, visibly closer than he has been before, gained 0.8 of a second on these two. And as we head on board the splitter of the BMW, you can see these two drivers fighting very, very close together, and he will be rubbing his hands together. The Porsche has been very, very quick through this part of the circuit. Dunlop curve heading down towards the first Egner, but the BMW of Darking manages to hold strong for the time being. Let's see what happens when they get towards the hairpin, as the Porsche, huge amounts of traction coming out of the second Egner, climbing up the hill under the bridge, and then through to turn 10, and then into the heavy braking zone. He got it wrong last time, but just about manages to keep it on the circuit this time around, as the pit window then opens up. So will we start to see some drivers go for a very bold undercut very, very soon? Bischoff locked into the slipstream. Darking consistently takes a wider line through there, maybe just trying to break the slipstream ever so slightly and stop that Porsche from being able to close in so much. Oh, a very wide moment for our championship leader. Carpenter tries to sneak on through, but unable to do so. So maybe the tyres starting to give way on that Porsche now, after being the hunter. The Porsche under pressure from the BMW Carpenter, who is closing rapidly as they head down towards 130R, is going to go towards the outside. That'll be in a huge move. If he tries to do it, he does. Bischoff then has to back out of the throttle, and after hunting down our race leader on the previous lap, the number 3 car, Marco Bischoff, has to settle for P3, and Carpenter goes through. He has been gaining on these two over these last few laps, so will we see any pit stops just yet? No. So our top 4 remain out on circuit as is, as Soldatov and Smollett going side by side through 130R. Philip Menard trying to recover as he goes right into the back of Soldatov. That was so close to having a huge bump between all of these drivers, but somehow, some way, they all managed to survive it and see the straight finish line, start finish straight, excuse me, for another time, as De Campo, one of our first pitters then to come in. And the Mercedes continuing to put pressure onto the BMW just in front, but unable to do so. We've also got Heron trying to put pressure on the Honda of Leon just in front, all over the gearbox of the Honda, the number 20 car, who does seem to have been struggling during parts of this race, but we will have to jump back towards the front because Carpenter all over the gearbox then of the BMW, and now we have almost a 4-way tussle for the race lead. Just as we break past the hour mark remaining, we end up with a 4-way fight for the race lead. We've got our 2 championship contenders in 3rd and 4th place, and Carpenter and Darren King trying to find their way into the championship battle, battling it out at the front, and it's all getting very, very spicy between these drivers. 3 BMWs, 1 Porsche, but all the action that we need to keep us happy. Jardier now, in actual fact, the one that is the closest to potentially make a move. Marco has been struggling, it seems, a little bit on those tyres in the last few laps. Went from looking very, very racy on the back of Darking's car, but does seem to have dropped back from Carpenter in front. Jardier, though, still too far back to do anything just yet. The number 8 car of De Campo briefly brought out the yellow flag. I think that might have actually been for exiting the pit lane, so no drama there. Carpenter, though, absolutely locked onto the gearbox of the GTWR number 1 BMW just in front, but unable to do anything for the time being. Jardier also very close to the Porsche down towards turn 1. Both BMWs. Oh, Jardier is going to send it down the inside on Marco Bischoff. I thought he was too far back. Bischoff then has to settle for the marbles on the outside, and Jardier will get back into P3 as he goes past the championship leader, who over these last few laps then has dropped all the positions. And now Carpenter continuing to hound the back of the number 1 car as more drivers come into the pits then. Carpenter, though, looking very, very racy, and Darren King looking continuously vulnerable as they continue round Suzuka. Is there a way that Carpenter can find a way by the BMW in front? He is absolutely hounding him everywhere that he can find an opportunity. Wonky line there for Darren King. Carpenter, though, I'm not sure he's quite close enough for a dive at the hairpin. He sort of shows his nose, but unable to do so. And we now have BMWs 1, 2, and 3 as Bischoff then tries to cling on for dear life onto this battle at the very front. Any bumps or incidents that happens between these guys, Bischoff will be there to capitalise. But right now, those front two starting to pull away just a bit, but it's Karppinen continuing to be looking very, very fast at this stage in the race, and you have to wonder, especially into the second stint with 50 minutes on the clock. Obviously, none of these guys having done their pit stop yet, but Karppinen seems to have the better race car of all of them. Let's go on board the rear view of Darren King to see the white BMW flashing his lights. He's letting him know he's there. Darren King not quite committing to the apex as much as he would have wanted, but it's Karppinen that goes slightly wide. Need to be careful about track limits. We've already seen McCormack suffer from that, and once again, none of these drivers diving into the pits then, and they will stay out on circuit. And Darren King continuing to lead the way as we just tick over 50 minutes. Just going to briefly check in with Soldatov, who's been putting more pressure onto the Ferrari just in front. In actual fact, Menard has got company with Del Fanta as well. Always has a very wide run for the Ferrari, and I think Soldatov maybe will do something about it going towards turn one. We've seen him do it before, trying to go around the outside now, holding the Ferrari on the inside, bumping tyres. He's got to move at some point. Smolia trying to show him the outside, and he's going to run him out of road. I think there's a little bit of contact between him and Soldatov, just about managing to keep the car together as they head through turns 1 and 2, and he finds a way through, but that was absolute wheel-to-wheel stuff then, and now Menard hounding the back of Smolia as well. But I don't think the Mercedes is going to be able to find a way through just yet. But Soldatov then muscling his way through. Smolia didn't want to give an inch, and neither did the number 22 car. But the BMW finds a way through and jumps up towards P7. More of our drivers then are doing their pit stops. We'll have to see where they emerge. As that's a yellow flag, and that's Karppinen and Dowking that have come together. And it's Jardier that capitalises on all of that and goes into lead with Bischoff in P2. So what happened between our leaders then? Going towards the hairpin, Karppinen made a mistake through the first Egner, was a little bit far back, so either it's Darking that's made an error or Karppinen has come from very, very far away as they go towards turn 1. What is it that happens? Oh, it's just the tiniest of taps. Darking was very slow through the apex there, and Karppinen taps him round. Jardier goes past the pair of them, and so does Marco Bischoff. And now we have our race winner from last time out at the Hungaroring, is now leading this race with his championship rival just behind him, as Menard, I think, has dropped back potentially from Smolia, as we're just trying to jump back. It may have actually been a rather rogue warning there going on, but big drama then at the front of the pack. As that four-way tussle, it was hotting up, and Karppinen then comes into the pits and will undoubtedly, I imagine, have a little bit of damage to repair on that car. It was such a small tap between himself and Darren King, as Darren King also coming into the pits as well, the big loser in all of that, and really the innocent victim as well. Was very slow on the apex. I think Karppinen, he's been looking very racy these last few laps and just wasn't quite expecting the closing speed to be as much as it was. In the meantime then, drivers that have pitted, the first of which Luke Anderson then has got Del Fanta for company, as they have all served their mandatory pit stop in this race. Went quite early in the pit stop window, which has only got 12 minutes remaining on the clock. Del Fanta though unable to do anything for the time being, as Addison actually pulls away a little bit there on the backstretch. The Audi not able to do too much, although a little bit wonky line there from Addison. Maybe not carrying as much speed through 130R as he would have liked, and very, very eager on the brakes is Del Fanta, but takes a little bit too much curb on the second part of the triangle there, and I think we'll drop back. We'll see then where some of our other drivers emerge. Who is it that is coming out in front? And Darking has actually got past Karppinen then, so I imagine that Karppinen did repair that damage, and that's allowed Darren King to re-emerge out of the pits. There's a yellow flag for Menard. That's him coming out of the pits as well. That's just a game throwing the wobbly, but he has come out, and where has he emerged? So he has emerged just in front of Samir Fock then, but Karppinen, closest driver on circuit right now to being involved in a battle, and it is with the driver that he made contact with at the very front of the field not long ago. So they haven't dropped down massively in the order, but undoubtedly that has hurt them. Bischoff then also comes into the pits. Jardier stays out a bit longer, So I think he has a bit of traffic just coming out the pits there in front. Joris Appel stays out as well. But Jardier then going longer in this stint, wants to keep the fresher tyres for the second half of the race. He's got a good advantage over Bischoff right now. If he puts in a good couple of laps, he can still make that overcut work and come out in front. Meanwhile, Carpenter then continuing to put pressure onto Darren King, our previous race leader. And race leader all the way since the second lap. And he took it away from Marco Bischoff. Then always that's a wide moment for Darren King. Maybe just putting a bit too much work into those tyres. And now that has given a potential run for Carpenter just behind. We've seen him do brave things at 130R before. Don't know if he'll be close enough this time around. And the answer is no. He backs out of that one. And he will have to bide his time for just a little bit longer. As Marquezing and Wassner going side by side up the hill through Dunlop Curve down towards the first Degner. Marquezing trying to keep it around the outside. It'd be brilliant if he does it, and he does. Oh, a little bit of bumping on the outside of the second Degner then, and it's going to be Wassner that maintains the position. A collection of yellow and white flags coming out. I think that's for pit lane exits, which is why I'm not too concerned. But these two still going at it, hammer and tong between these drivers. That won't help their net position potentially overall with all of the battling. But Vassar then holds on to the position for the time being. Marquezing though trying to come back as they head up towards Spoon Curve. Can he go around the outside? I don't think he's going to be able to keep much ground there. In actual fact, he goes a little bit wide and will have to continue to settle behind the Audi for the time being. Keep an eye on some of those other gaps as well. We've got the likes of Hartkemper and Alessio Mellis in close proximity to Boroshuk just up in front. So three-way fight there right now for P19. Might not be effective P19 depending on what these guys do in terms of their pit strategy. As Jardier and Joris Appel then come into the pits. So we will have to see where that all fares then for the likes of Marco Bischoff. Also, Anuferev in the like and subscribe car has capitalised on those battles between, well, the incident between Darren King and Karppinen, and now finds himself very decently far in front of those guys and will see himself in effectively P3 position. But Marco Bischoff, that's the man that we want to keep an eye on. Will Jaroslav Honzig maintain the race lead? He inherited it after the incident, was able to sleek his way through, use all of that racecraft and experience that he has accumulated over the years. Jardier just coming out of the pit lane right now. See the Porsche will appear, I think, further down the straight. Just see a red speck in the background, and Jardier then easily maintains the race lead in front of his championship rival, who goes a bit deep actually at turn 2, as Vassner then will come into the pits. Meanwhile, Karppinen continuing to put pressure onto Darren King as everyone starts to shuffle around as drivers go through their pit stops. We've only got 3 drivers out front at the moment yet to do a pit stop. As a yellow flag for Vassner, that's just coming out of the pit lane once more. Decoy yellow flags here and there. As Anuferev has got some company of Appel. So in actual fact, it's Appel that's come out in effective 3rd place position. But with those tyres up to temperature on the number 7 BMW, can Anuferev do anything about the Audi that has emerged just in front? In actual fact, Appel getting a good run there through the 1st and 2nd Degner will manage to extend that for the time being. Karppinen still locked onto the gearbox of Darren King. Does he think about sending up the insides where they had the incident before? And the answer is no. The BMW will continue to settle just behind then, as Addison and Delfanta lurk around in the background, as Soldatov has retired to the pit lane. So I can only imagine that maybe a drive-through penalty acquired and has retired to the pits. But that's very disappointing. Soldatov, another one of the like and subscribe BMWs, is making his way through the field at points very nicely, and looks like his race has come to an end then. Anuferev, though, putting all sorts of pressure onto Appel just in front, who goes a bit wide through 130R. But right now, the BMW unable to make a move, but we've seen overtakes down towards turn 1 time and time again, and that was a very good drive out of Casio Triangle as two of our front runners come into the pits. That'll hand Johnny effective P2, but we're on board with Onufriev trying to find a way past the Audi. The Audi using all of its horsepower to see if he can hold on to position. Onufriev trying to go all the way around the outside, but will get shown the door. Oh, there's a little bit of contact between himself and Appel does manage to carry on. But there was a slight bump between those two as they went through turn 1 and 2. So we'll see it again. Let's go on board with the rear bumper of the Audi. They got very, very close together, going down the back straight. The Audi obviously thought he had enough room to clear the BMW in front. Was it just a little bit on the rear side corner, and a great bit of car control from Appel to keep the car pointing in the right direction then, but he will be a little bit frustrated at that from Onufriev, who now inherits the remaining effective podium spot once Brouillet in the number 18 car does do their pit stop, as De Campo going very, very slowly on the exit of Dunlop Curve. What's happened to the Porsche? Oh, just goes wide and then goes over the bumps, that section where the tarmac cuts back in and then loses a couple of positions. That's Marquezing and Heron going past, so the Porsche dropping back then is immediately locked back into a fight trying to recover those positions, but not ideal for the number 8 car. Meanwhile, the number 15 Karppinen still hounding the back of our previous race leader, who goes very wide on the exit Spoon Curve, and that might be all the invitation that Karppinen needs. These two have made contact before, so Darkin will not be wanting to let out go, and he sweeps back across, but Karppinen back into the slipstream immediately and looks down towards the inside, going towards 130R, but has to back out that one. It looks like the GTWR car set up a bit better for the straights. Maybe the reason why the tyre management on Karppinen's car was a little bit better later on in the stint. The better overall race car, but Darren King then able to hold on to the position for the time being, but still coming under huge amounts of pressure from the number 15, but still cannot find a way by. Meanwhile, last time around, big time difference between our two front runners. Marco Bischoff 0.6 of a second faster and set the fastest lap of the race relative to Jaroslav Honzig, so the battle for the race win and huge implications on the championship as we head towards the halfway point of the season as well, still very much on the cards as we have 38 minutes left on the clock. Bit further down the order, looked like we had a battle for a second going on there between Hartkamper. A bit of dust kicked up from Boris Scholk just in front. Two Audis following in very close proximities to one another through the S's. But it will be number 16 having to settle for the time being for 18th place, as Schalk maintains his position in 17th. Karppinen, though, still putting Darking under pressure for what is now effective P6. These two were dueling for the race lead, but after an intense and heated battle, just Karppinen running a little bit deeper into the hairpin than perhaps he anticipated. Darking very slow on the apex, did seem to be struggling with his tyres at that phase of the race. That allowed Karppinen to close in as he's doing once more down towards 130 yards. Does he think about a late look towards the inside? No, backs out of it once more. And Darking will hold on to the advantage for now. Oh, as Karppinen sends it down towards the inside, and that was so close. And Darren King said, no thank you, sunshine, I'm holding on to P6. Well, what will be P5 when our last pitter comes in. He was leaving it very, very late. But Darren King then holds on to that position for the time being. Meanwhile, though, Hartkamper was closing down the back straight towards 130R, but Boris Schalk stays strong. A little bit of an off for Vassner. I think that was just up ahead, kicking up the dirt. But no harm done for the time being, as once again our closest battle on track then is between the two BMWs, Karppinen and Darking. But up at the front, that gap between Jardier and Marco Bischoff, our championship protagonists, down to a second as Bischoff found another half a second. And we saw this before. We saw the Porsche go from being a little bit off at the beginning of the stint, really came into its own, and then it seemed to tail off. So Bischoff, this is a time that he needs to push. If he wants to win this race, he needs to make it in about the next 20 minutes. Otherwise, those tyres, based on what we saw in the first stint, may end up dropping away from him, and Jardier may be able to run away from it and take the race win. But Marco right now looking very, very fast. Karppinen has dropped a little bit away from Darking just up ahead. Further down, Hartkämper continuing to put pressure on Boris Schulk, who goes a little bit deep on the exit of the second Degner there. Does he think about a move towards the hairpin? Oh, middle of the road defence there from Schulk, covering all bases, but had a bit of a compromised exit there. But the pair of them, oh, as Karppinen, we've missed it. Disappointingly, I have a feeling there was either contact or Darking made a mistake at Spoon. We saw Darking make an error potentially. There's a very big gap between the pair of them, so I'm inclined to say it was a mistake potentially from our previous race leader. What happened? As he got towards the braking zone, oh, just completely spun out on that curb. And that's what I was talking about in qualifying, that whilst you do want to be as aggressive with the track limits around here as possible to really open up the flow of the circuit and carry all of that momentum, it can bite you dearly. As meanwhile, Marco Bischoff has really closed in now on our race leader, taking another 0.4 of a second out of Jardier then, and our two championship protagonists are starting to go toe-to-toe for the first time in this race, really for the race lead, as Brouillet finally comes into the pits just at the end of the window, it must be said. Marquezing is also very close onto the back of Heron in the number 20 Audi, but unable to do anything for the time being, as there's a yellow flag. Oh, that's for Brewer, so that'll be for the pits. Oh, it's a bit of a late send down towards the inside of the S's there. Tried carrying the momentum, and that will allow Marquezing through, but that was a little bit of push and shove there from the BMW. I'm not quite sure that the Audi will be feeling too happy about that one, as he got muscled out of the way, but the BMW then does find a way through the S's in a very unconventional spot. We haven't really seen any overtakes through that part of the circuit in a long, long time, but Marquezing does find a way through. We've also got a bit of a three-way fight further down between Hartkämper, Mishka, and who else is involved in that? I think, so try to see, I think that is that's still Boris Schulk that leads this little trio, battling for 16th position at the moment. A great example once again that anywhere up and down the field, epic racing, close, hard, wheel-to-wheel battling that 95% of the time results in some fantastic clean fights. And then unfortunately, sometimes when these drivers get a little bit hot under the collar, it all goes just a tiny bit wrong, but not too often, as Vassner trying to make a move on the Porsche towards 130. Oh, that'd be very, very brave, and has to back out of the throttle, understandably. Oh, as he gets a huge wiggle, just about holds onto the car. But now it's Hartkämper with Boris Schulk going very, very wide on the exit of 130R then, and will defend the inside line towards Casio Triangle. Number 13 trying to get involved in this once more, but unable to do anything for the time being, though. Number 16 firmly locked in the slipstream of Boris Schulk, who I think may be about to come under a huge amount of pressure from the Audi. Does defend towards the inside line to try to stop the charge, and the BMW comes flying down towards the inside, and it is Mishka that then jumps ahead of Hartkämper, muscles his way through. BMW's really throwing everything at it, but after going wide at turn 2, Hartkämper then comes back and gets himself back into P17 then, and that gives Boris Schulk a little bit of breathing room for the time being. But somebody that has no breathing room whatsoever is Jardier, up in first place, continuing to hold back the charging Porsche of Marco Bischoff then, who once again makes another attempt to fight for the race win, but unable to do so for the time being. But just look how much more confident he is in the slow speed corners. In actual fact, goes a little bit wide there, almost touches the gravel, but Jardier then will hold strong by the looks of it for another lap. But the Porsche absolutely brilliant stuff with these guys jousting for the race win. We thought maybe Jalier would have been able to run away with it after he snuck through with the incident between Darking and Karppinen, but Marco Bischoff has something else to say about it. Speaking of which, Karppinen has managed to pull away quite nicely from Darking, so Darking unable to maintain pace with the other BMW. Bischoff, though, unable to make any ground towards turn 1, just visibly seeing once again that straight line speed deficit that the Porsche constantly has to contend with. And Del Fanta also putting some pressure onto the BMW of Addison, though I think he's a little bit too far back for the time being. We've also got Brouillet further down the order, who's in a close fight with Renoir. I think those two were battling early on, and Brouillet went on a very, very late pit stop, so his tyres are extremely fresh. And the Lamborghini gets a very poor exit coming out of Casio Triangle then, and I think the Porsche may be able to fight it, although Renoir trying to come back. Will he be able to do anything back down towards turn 1? He thinks about it. Renoir trying to go down towards the inside, see if he can find his way back past, but the fresh tyres on the Porsche then able to carry the momentum through, and Brouillet on that overcut strategy uses the fresh rubber to his advantage and sweeps around the Lamborghini, making that mistake on the exit, the final corner. Then back up at front though, Marco Bischoff constantly on that shorter inside line. The BMWs, we saw Darren King do this as well, going further around the outside. Maybe again Jadier trying to break the slipstream on the Porsche, but right now that Porsche unable to find a way through, and the tyres, we saw it before as the stim went on. The tyre drop-off in that Porsche did seem to be fairly substantial, so is that window of opportunity for Marco Bischoff to find a way through of his championship rival as it goes very wide through 130R? Is it starting to get away from him? Jadier still holding on to the race lead. Is there anything that the number 3 car can do to try to find a way past down towards turn 1? Good acceleration out of the final chicane, but it's this trade-off between the acceleration and the top speed, and even as close in the slipstream as he is, the Porsche once again unable to find a way through. I feel like he's going to have to do something, potentially either down towards the hairpin or somewhere between the Dunlop curve and the first and second Degners, because that's where the Porsche is particularly fast. Look at its change of direction through the S's. We saw Marquezing jump up and take a very opportunistic move through this SS sections previously. Marco Bischoff not resorting to doing something like that just yet. But the Porsche, that is where it's quick, but that BMW occupying all of the track in front of the number 3 car and unable to make his way past for the time being. Jadier holds strong once more. Very close also further down the order between Mishka and Boris Schulk. Mishka then hounding the Audi just in front. But I think through the S's, unless it's another late dive. Bit of a mistake, actually, from Schulk. Does the number 13 sense an opportunity before Dunlop? No. So he will have to bide his time and see if he can wait. Actual fact, has a bit of a wiggle on the exit there. Loses some momentum. Meanwhile, Del Fanta's also closing up. I actually have to say, the BMW got a much better run than I was expecting. Closed right up onto the gearbox, but then took a bit too much curb through the first Egner, and then ends up dropping back. And now it's Alessio Mellis getting involved in this fight, making it a 3-way tussle for 17th position then. But then goes a little bit deep, may set it up nicely for the exit. Can the Ferrari do anything up the hill? A car that sometimes, depending upon the tracks that we visit, the BOP does sometimes give the Ferrari some brilliant straight line speed, but it doesn't look like right now that there is much in the way for Mishka to work with. Well, that was a little bit squirrely from the BMW though. Does that give an opportunity to the Ferrari? Not sure if he's going to be close enough, heading down towards 130 on the BMW. You wouldn't think it by looking at it, but the M4 does have a decent amount of grunt under the bonnet. In this case, it is the bonnet. Front engine car gets a little bit snagged up on that curve, so Mellis will have to settle behind for the time being. Meanwhile, up at the front, Bischoff still putting huge amounts of pressure then onto our race leader. but unable to find a way through as Marquezing was getting very, very close there onto the back of Samir Fock. But Samir still holding on to P11 then, so just outside of the top 10. We saw Marquezing pull off a surprise move through the S's before. I think he might be a little bit too far back this time around, but gained almost a second last time around. So that BMW looking very, very quick at this stage of the race. Once again, Bischoff closes in that middle part of the lap. Runs a little bit wide where we saw Duncan get it wrong over that curb at Spoon. And the Porsche very much seems to like running it wide around Spoon Curve, making use of the entire track width and just jumping on the power using all the traction at the rear wheels of the Porsche then through 130R once more. Both of them seemingly surviving it for the time being as one of or a couple of the spies in the chat. Drive-through penalty then for Karppinen. So too much flirting with the track limits, unfortunately, sees the charge from the fastest man on circuit. Then he will drop down the order. Don't think he'll serve it straight away. Or he will. I thought he might stay out a bit longer, try and make him use that free air, but Darren King then will maybe feel a sense of karma from that for number 15, as Darren King then will take 5th place and Karppinen will drop down the order. So the track limits then at Suzuka strikes once more. Marquezing continuing to put pressure onto the Ferrari up ahead. Bischoff lost a little bit of time last time round, opened up to a second, has closed during the first sector, down to 7/10 once more, but unable to find a way past that BMW as we have less than 25 minutes left as Karppinen emerging from the pit lane. Oh, there's a little bit of lawn mowing from the BMW on the exit of turn 2 that was. So pushing how much track he wants to play with. Bischoff immediately has closed that gap once more at the front of the field as Karppinen closes up to the back of this battle. Got Mishka fighting with Boris Scholk. These two have been going at it for a while, and now Karppinen, we know he's got good pace in that car. He was doing 59.7s. These other cars are doing 201s, so huge pace difference between these two. Karppinen may even try getting past towards the first Degner. Does he sense an opportunity? Not quite yet. A little bit of a wide moment though for Mishka, although he's immediately back onto the case of the Audi just in front. So three-way tussle then for what is now P16 after Karppinen's drive-through penalty. Has a little bit of a look down the inside towards the hairpin, but backs out of it. Mishka almost looked like he got alongside the Audi of Schalk then for a second, but unable to do so for the time being. And the number 15 just drops back for a moment, checking back in further at the front. Marquezing still putting pressure on to Samir in the Ferrari, as is Marco Bischoff, who is very, very close to the back of Jardier, leading this race still with just over 20 minutes on the clock. But Marco, despite being as close as he is in the slipstream and having the pace advantage, unable to make a move, as we've got some close battling between Vassner and De Campo going on as well. Vassner in the Audi. Can he use the grunt down towards turn 1? We know that the Porsches are inevitably struggling very heavily when it comes to straight line speed. Oh, we actually might even see a move between Marquezing on Samir Fock, and he breezes his way by, and Vassner tries to do a similar thing, a late lunge towards turn 1, but De Campo shuts the door on the Audi. We'll have to settle then for P14 still for the time being. Karppinen manages to make his way through on Mishka, runs a little bit wide. Mishka may fight back, he's going to try it, but unable to get through in the end. Let's see how did Karppinen set that one up. Much better traction visibly out of Casio Triangle. Locked into the slipstream of the BMW up ahead, and then as they went down towards turn 1, just closing, Mishka didn't defend it initially, did try to come back on the exit of turn 2 and actually backed out of the throttle there before they got to the corner. So Karppinen, despite running a little bit wider than he would have liked, still managing to make his way through and then gets up into P17, though I imagine that he will still be ruining the frustrations of getting that drive-through penalty, and this will seem very far away from what he would have liked at this point in time. And considering in the championship he was battling for P3, he needed a good result today to try and get himself more involved in the championship fight between these two at the front of the pack. But all that's going to do is allow the likes of Darren King to really cement a chance for P3 in the championship. Del Fanta and Addison going side by side in towards Casio Triangle. I think that's Del Fanta was trying to make a move around the outside. That's brought Van der Velde into this one as well. He's been lapping a few tenths of a second faster than these guys these last few laps, but a little bit far back to do anything for the time being. Meanwhile, Vassner having another go at De Camper. The Porsche accelerates out of Casio Triangle, but very quickly the advantage turns back towards the number 12 Audi, heading down towards turn 1. Is there anything that Vassner can do? See him closing. Does he think about a late lunge? And he does, and he's alongside, but again, De Campo shuts the door and just about manages to hold on to the position. Firm defence there from the number 8 as Karppinen launches an attack down the inside of Boris Schulk and makes his way up a position. Fairly conventional stuff there from Karppinen, goes down the inside, and Boris Schulk just did not have an answer for the attack there from Karppinen, who now sets off in sight of Hartkemper for P15. Bischoff still pushing on. 20 minutes left on the clock. It was around this sort of point in the race previously where we saw the Porsche start to seemingly struggle a bit when it came to tyre wear. Will we see the same sort of thing again? Last time round, advantage was to Jardier, only by a couple of tenths of a second, and of course Bischoff very, very close on the gearbox once more, but just unable to reel in that BMW as much as he needs to send an attack, as Mishka going side by side with Schulk. That was a dive there, I think, from Mishka going in towards the hairpin. Boris Schulk fighting back though, using the power of that Audi as they head back up towards the hill, up the climb towards Spoon Curve. Will the BMW try to fight back? Looks towards the inside, but is going to be unable to find a way past. Continuing to hound the Audi then, but is simply not in a position to make a move. Will he have enough speed going down the back straight in the slipstream? See that BMW just gaining a fraction, gaining little by little, shows his nose, won't be close enough as they get to 130R. Can he do anything as they head towards Casio Triangle? Be a very, very late lunge if he did, and in fact I don't think he'll be able to. One person who might be able to make a move on this lap though is Karppinen, who has got the Audi of Hartkemper set in his sights, and the BMW then looking to try to make up another position on his recovery through the pack. On board then with Karppinen as they head towards turn 1, shows his nose but won't be able to make his way past just yet as the Audi holds on to the position for the time being, as does Jardier out front, still holding off Bischoff. Very close between those two, but the Porsche still unable to find a way past. Mishka all over the back of Boris Schulk as well. We've got these two pairs of BMW Audi battles going on as they head up through Donald Curve, and I jumped on board the wrong Audi, that's why. Hartkemper still under immense amounts of pressure then from Karppinen, who we know has arguably got the pace. He's got more than enough pace to get past the Audi, but sometimes pace does not necessarily convert into being able to make an overtake. I'm sure Marco Bischoff right now is seeing that in abundance, that BMW seeming incredibly wide in front, and Jardier doing everything that he needs to do to just continue to chip away at the championship lead that Bischoff has. If he wins today, I do believe he'll be the first repeat winner of this season. Certainly first back-to-back winner, one last time out at the Hungaroring. Can the number 5 in the BMW do it once more? Bischoff having to stay back for the time being as we continue to look at these couple of battles of Audi BMWs. Trying once more, Karppinen carrying good speed wide from Harkemper on the way towards Casio Triangle. Very, very late on the brakes from the BMW and maybe a little bit too late. Just about keeps it in there. Very fair from Harkemper to give him room, but I think will have the acceleration on the outside of Casio Triangle, but now has got the BMW all over his gearbox as they head down towards turn 1 then, and that BMW looking very, very speedy as they go down towards turn 1 once more and flips back towards the inside line, but that gets shut right in front of him, but Harkemper goes wide and Karppinen through at turn 2 then. Meanwhile, Borishouk continuing to be under pressure from Mishka in the BMW just behind, but the BMW not able to repeat what Karppinen was able to just achieve. That was super late on the brakes at Casio Triangle, and fair play to Harkemper for giving him the room in the second part of the chicane. That was a bold move as Renoir losing the position to the McLaren, I think, through that opening sector, went deep in the first couple of corners, and the McLaren then of Detchik able to make his way through the number 19 car going up into 21st position. Del Fanta still putting pressure on Addison, to which there is some support for Luke in the chat. There's a bit of a three-way fight for 6th place here. Addison goes a little bit wide on the exit of Spoon Curve, and Del Fanta trying to use that Audi power down the back straight towards 130 Arta, really in the BMW. But we've seen that the BMW is pretty quick around here. Del Fanta going wider, but he still needs to be careful. Just under 50 minutes left on the clock, as though Addison goes a little bit deep as Marquezing brings up a white flag. That's just a decoy one once more, but Del Fanta then unable to close in enough on the BMW just up in front. So close within reach, but just unable to make a move as Mishka continuing to put pressure on the Audi of Borishouk further down the order, and a little bit of a compromise line there for the Audi, and maybe this will be the opportunity that Mishka needs this time around. Firmly locked onto the gearbox. Which way does he go, left or right? Borishouk firmly defends the inside line. The BMW sent towards the outside then as the yellow flag briefly for Vassars. There's contact between the Audi and the 13 car. Going in towards turn 1, it got very, very tight down the start-finish straight, and it continued as they went through those first couple of corners. As then several track warnings come up for drivers flirting with the outskirts of the track once more, but firm defence then from Borishouk stops the BMW from being able to make his way past. And we'll have to, for the time being, continue to settle for 18th position then. But brilliant fighting, although it was a good run out of Dunlop Curve, and Borishouk has to defend towards the first Egner. Can Mishka carry speed into the second? Not quite, and Borishouk holds on to that position for the time being. Meanwhile, Del Fanta continuing to hound the back of Luke Addison for 6th position. Van der Velde just licking his lips, waiting for some contact, waiting for an error. I don't think the McLaren quite has the outright pace at the moment to try to make an overtake on either one of these guys, but maybe able to capitalise as Addison has to defend the inside line. Del Fanta as they go back towards the outside of the track through 130R. That's allowed Van der Velde to get involved in this one. Tries going around the outside, very, very late brakes. It's like Karppinen all over again. But Van der Velde just about keeping his nose in there. Addison runs away, and Del Fanta just about manages to hold on to the position through Casio Triangle. But now, does the McLaren have anything to fight against the Audi down the start-finish straight then? Look at the Audi power. It's just inconceivable to a lot of the other cars here. The M4, realistically, the only thing that seems to be able to fight with it down the start-finish straight is Del Fanta makes a mistake, goes very, very wide, and now Van der Velde trying to go around the outside of the S's. That is a big move. He can make it stick. He's on the grass and almost into the back of the Audi, but just about manages to pull up the car in time, and Del Fanta survives that attack for another day. Addison is able to get some breathing room, and they all stay as they were moments ago, although Van der Velde has not given up on this one, and maybe now that the Audi doesn't have so much of a slipstream from just in front, maybe the McLaren will be able to just close up enough to find a way past. Someone who hasn't still, Bischoff
Lost a little bit of time last time around to Jardier, currently leading this race, only half second separating them. The gap varies between 2 tenths, sometimes up to 7 tenths, but still remains very, very close between our 2 race leaders, as Mishka once again close very, very much onto the back of Borshok. These two jousting for 17th position for a number of laps now, but has not been able to make his way past. Mishka, though, gets a good run, potentially out of the hairpin. Does he have anything to fight against that Audi power going up the hill? BMW closing in, but as they head up towards Spoon Curve once more, is unable to do anything. Can the BMW do... Sets up a... No, that's a huge kick of oversteer, actually, for Mishka. So Mishka will drop back, and that will allow Borshok to have a bit of breathing room. Meanwhile, Marco Bischoff still absolutely hounding the back of Jardier. Almost look towards the inside there for a late move on the BMW as we approach just about 10 minutes remaining of this race. And these two have been absolutely nose to tail ever since they managed to get into these positions. As Darren King and Karppinen came together, they have been absolutely jousting at it, and Jardier has been using everything, all of his know-how, all of his racecraft to hold back the championship leader, that is Marco Bischoff, the number 3 Porsche, putting all sorts of pressure on the BMW, and it doesn't seem to have suffered the same drop-off that we saw in the first stint, because that Porsche is looking very racy and sends it up towards the inside, but doesn't manage to get alongside, and Jardier doesn't fall for the dummy. Marco was trying to make a gap open up and then use acceleration up towards Spoon Curve, but Jardier using that wealth of knowledge and staying firmly on the racing line and keeping that position then for the time being. And Marco Bischoff very confident to use that bit of runoff curve. Same again on the exit of Spoon, as Karppinen has got through on Vassner. I do believe it was up through the run through Dunlop Curve, got it done before the first Egner, and then Vassner then had to drop back, and that allowed Karppinen to jump up to 14th position then on his surge back through the field. Then close battles still going on between Borshok and Hendrik Mishka. These two have been jousting for a while. But we do have some other fights emerging as well. Marquezing, who's at very good pace in this latter phase of the race, is closing down on Philip Menard as they head down towards 130R. Surely he doesn't go to the inside. He's looking at it. Does he back out of it? The answer is no. Philip Menard has to leave open his door. The Mercedes goes completely off, and they're still side by side going towards Casio Triangle. Can the BMW outbrake around the outside? And the answer is yes. Marquezing then brave stuff down the inside. Menard, that Mercedes is treacherous at 130R at the best of times, and just had no answer for the pace that Marquezing has shown in this second part of the race. Very good move there to get up into P9. As further down, Mishka still can't find a way past the Audi, though seemingly a much better run out of Casio Triangle. And this is by far the closest that he has been in a long, long time. The Audi firmly defends the inside line. Borshok all the way to the wall. The BMW now trying to come around the outside. He's going to keep in there as long as he dares. Will swing back towards the outside now through turn 1. They've touched before through here before Borshok, keeping him on the outside line. Runs a little bit wide of the apex, and the BMW is shoved wide at turn 2. And I think the Audi will maintain the position, and he does. So once again, firm defence from Schalk, and the BMW unable to find a way past, and the 13 continuing to have to settle for P18 for time being then, as that gap slightly opens out, as has some of our other battles, except for this one at the front. 7.5 minutes left on the clock. That gives about 4 laps left for Bischoff to try to find a way through. Jardier, can he bring this one home? He's been under immense amounts of pressure constantly throughout this race. Bischoff absolutely chucking everything at it, running a little bit wide at 130R. So late on the brakes, absolutely hounding the back of that BMW as they run down towards the first turn again. Let's see, is there anything that the Porsche can do in the slipstream? He is so close to the back of the BMW of Jardier. But that BMW, it's just got the legs down the start-finish straight, down the back straight. It has enough straight line speed. Different lines through the first couple of turns, Looks like the Porsche, more confident in that change of direction, will stay on board with this view and see, is there any way that Marco Bischoff can find to try to sneak one around the S's. We saw Marquezing do it earlier on. It's a late and firm type of move to go for, but it might be the sort of move that Bischoff has to resort to if he wants to try to find a way around Jardier, who has now led this race for so long. Ever since these two inherited these positions, Jardier has firmly held on to that position as further down Karppinen, down the inside of De Campo towards turn 1. Karppinen then might be an easy one. De Campo trying to hold on to it, but I don't think the Porsche has got anything to fight with, and that will see Karppinen then get up into P13. Mishka was on the back of the Audi once more of Schulk, but can't do anything, as De Campo also trying to retain onto the back of Karppinen, but that BMW undoubtedly will start to sail away. 8/10 of a second clear of his previous best, excuse me, a second faster than the number 8 car's previous best last time round. So Karppinen, as expected, flying and doing his best to recover up through the field. Del Fanta, this trio for P6 Addison, has continued to hold on to this position, and Del Fanta and Van der Velde have managed to close in every now and again, but just have not been able to quite put a move together. The McLaren sort of seems to have run out a bit of steam, has been able to capitalise on their battling at times, but just doesn't seem to quite have the outright pace to make a overtake. Del Fanta once more in the slipstream, closing down this back straight. The Audi in the slipstream is a mighty fast car. Addison, though, a bit further in front. Mistake from Del Fanta, goes wide. Van der Velde joins him a little bit, but all keeping it on the track. But these guys do need to be careful with under 5 minutes of racing left to not get a drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, Heron, the Swiss in the number 20 car, trying to put pressure onto Samir Fock, who, despite being slightly stuck in the early phases of the race at the tail end of the top 20, or sorry, early stages of the top 20, has managed to find his way up to P11. So it's been a reserve drive through the field then to capitalise on other people's mistakes and just climb up the order bit by bit. But it's worked for Samir, but he's now under a lot of pressure from the Audi, as there's also a battle further down the order between Brouillet and the Ferrari of Alessio Mellis just in front. Porsche, the last of our stoppers, so has the freshest tyres out of everybody, but currently unable. Oh, it's the BMW, launches attack down the inside. That was Mishka trying to go past the Audi of Schulk, and he may have found contact between them through the S's. Mellis goes into the back of Schulk as well. Schulk off, Mishka off, Mellis loses a position, and the one that capitalises on it all is the Porsche of Brouillet. So let's see, can we capture what went on there? It all got very tight. It all starts off with Mishka finding an opportune moment through the S's, as the camera is going to give us an absolutely terrible view, isn't it? There we go. So we got through, going through 4 and 5 by the looks of it, and as they went side by side towards turn 6, they just came together, and the two of them have been battling so hard for so long, end up going off, and then the Porsche of Brouillet manages to sneak through. Mellis unfortunately went straight into the back of the Audi, but in the end the Porsche capitalises on all the chaos. Meanwhile, a couple of laps left to go for our drivers then. Del Fanta trying anything that he can find to see if he can get past Addison, who has been holding on to this position for so long, as is Bischoff, who is continuing to put pressure onto the BMW. These two absolutely line astern, lap after lap. It looks like earlier on that Jardier, after the pit stops, he had a big margin, but Marco Bischoff has thrown absolutely everything at him. But so far, with 2 minutes left on the clock, the BMW driver has not broken. He has not faltered. Del Fanta under pressure from Van der Velde then, as they head through the S's one more time. Bit of a compromised line for Addison in the BMW, but he will hold on to it for the time being. Is there anything Del Fanta can do as they climb up through Dunlop for the penultimate time? Doesn't look like it. The BMW well-rounded car throughout the Suzuka race circuits. Why it's been so strong. Has good straight line speed, good capabilities with the curbs. And trying to battle it is not an easy task. Delphanta went a little bit deep, going in towards the hairpin. And Van der Velde now trying to put a bit of pressure onto the Audi. But look at the grunt of the Audi, just completely opens up that gap again. Van der Velde was right next to him as they came out of the hairpin. And then the BMW and the Audi just absolutely disappear as they charge up the hill towards Spoon. It's on all the high speed stuff that McLaren is able to close in. But I think once more that Addison a little bit too far up the road for Delphanta unless he tries something particularly special, as we do head on to the final lap of this race as these guys look to try jousting out for P6, and our leaders, our championship protagonists, also doing the very same thing. But Delphanta then, can he do anything to tackle Luke Addison out of that position? I don't think so. Heron firmly onto the back of Foxstill, who is right behind Minhar, who has dropped who has dropped a chunk of pace later on in this race. Mercedes has lost time throughout. Delphanta continuing to put pressure onto Addison, but unable to do so. But we will check on with our race battle for the lead, because Jardier is continuing to hold back the Porsche. Is there anything that Marco Bischoff can do? He has thrown everything. Will he send it up the inside? Does he think about late London? He does, and he's up the inside, and there's contact between the pair of them, and Jardier's around. He keeps it going. Marco Bischoff, who is going to have the drag race up towards Spoon Curve. Marco Bischoff then sends it up the inside, and our championship rivals come together. Is there anything that Jardier can do to fight back to the Porsche? He will have the straight line speed advantage. I'm sure after that he will be absolutely seething at the contact that they had at the hairpin. Is there anything that BMW can do? The Porsche runs a little bit wide, but he's been continuing to do so throughout. Jardier, can he close in on the slipstream? And Bischoff lifts off. Bischoff lifts off. Good sportsmanship there from Marco Bischoff. Recognises the mistake. And fantastic stuff then here at the LFM Pro Series. Jardier goes back through then on the exit of 130R. Can Bischoff launch anything at the Casio Triangle? He has thrown absolutely everything and a bit more at this man. But Jaroslav Honzik then is going to be your back-to-back winner here in the LFM Pro Series for round 6 at Suzuka, with a brilliantly defended victory from Marco Bischoff, who very sportingly lets Jardier back through after that contact at the hairpin. Fantastic stuff there. That was a hard-fought battle, but very nicely done in the end, as Anderson desperately trying to hold off Delphanta. Van der Velde might actually better capitalise on that mistake, trying to go around the outside, but if he's going to run out of track, and in the end, there is nothing that he can do. So Appel finishes in third, Onufriev in P4. Darren King will have to consolidate himself with P5. Addison holds on to P6. Delphanta P7. Tinko van der Velde P8. Also got some battles going on further down the order. That was very close between Fock and Heron, as all of our drivers then make it towards the finish line. Marquezing in P9. Minar P10. And we will have a bit more of a detailed run through the rest of the grid in a moment. But Marco Bischoff, he threw everything at Jardier. They did make contact, but huge amounts of respect and kudos has to be given to this man for giving that position back down the back straight. He knew it was a late dive. Jardier tried to leave space. He didn't leave a lot, but he left effectively what that dive deserved. And in the end, Marco giving back that position, and that number 5 car has a very happy man undoubtedly in it. Jardier, of course, one of the smiliest people in sim racing that you'll ever see, but with a victory like that when he had to fight so hard, he will be absolutely loving that. Fantastic stuff then here in the LFM Pro Series. Brilliant action for 90 minutes of Suzuka, as we of course have come to expect from this championship then. So we shall look to take a look at the results momentarily.
when those official results come through, we'll have a look at those. But what an absolutely insane battle then we have had today for round 6 of the LFM Pro Series. That was an absolutely mighty, mighty fight for the race win there between Jardier and Marco Bischoff. Is not necessarily who we thought might take it in the end. Darren King was leading for so long, and it was Karppinen that had the late pace in the first stint that was able to come back and challenge for the lead, but contact between those two saw Jardier and Marco Bischoff getting into those leading positions. Jardier came out of the pits initially with a good, strong advantage, but as it was then, Jardier was able to hold on to the race lead to the end after sustaining all of that pressure from the hard-charging Porsche of Marco Bischoff. We'll see if we get any interviews potentially as well. See if we have anybody that wants to hop in for a little chat after that exceptional race. Now I'm hoping that we may be back. I understand that most people probably would have dropped out of the stream now. Apologies for that. A rather ill-timed PC crash right at the very end of the stream, which is rather unfortunate. But I suppose it's better that it happened then rather in the middle of all of the race action. So your official final results then of the race. See, Jardier then managed to take the race win just ahead of Marco Bischoff after that hard-fought victory. As so everything's out of sequence now, and the graphics will loop around momentarily. There we go. Joris Appel takes 3rd place. 4th goes to a new throw of Darren King in 5th. Addison 6th. Delfanta 7th. Van der Velde in 8th. Markezing in 9th. Minart takes P10, Fock 11th, Heron 12th, Karppinen recovers to 13th, De Campo 14th, Vassner in 15th, Hartkoper will finish in 16th, Breyer will manage to get himself up in 17th, Mellis 18th, Mishka 19th, Detchik 20th, Renoir 21st, Schulk 22nd, Zaitsev in 23rd, Smolya, Solstov, Leon Byrne, McCormack, and a couple of others unfortunately ending up retiring from the race then in the end with losing out on penalties, so, and for various other reasons. So that is it then for the round 6 of Suzuka. I do apologise for that PC crash at the end. And that was rather unfortunate, but at least it's happened after the race, so we saw all of the action goodness prior to then. So, if you want to see more from the LFM Pro Series here on the YouTube channel, well, do not worry, because a week from now, we will be heading to Kyalami for round 7, as we then transition into the second half of the season, where it's going to be very, very tight at the top of the standings between Marco Bischoff and Jardier after those two went toe-to-toe today. So it will be another fantastic race there. The interesting one as well, Porsche versus BMW at Kyalami, is undoubtedly going to be an interesting back and forth. You would initially think that the Porsche would have the advantage. However, when you consider what the BMW has been capable of doing today, maybe Jardier can do something special once more. and fight back for a surprise victory. So we will have to see what happens there. So if you have enjoyed today's racing and you want to get involved in LFM yourself, either in some of these championships or on the daily races, and do head over to lowfuelmotorsport.com, get yourself signed up, get yourself a license and a profile, and then head out onto the servers and work your way up to some of the big guns that we saw on the circuit this evening. And if you want to get all the updates on the latest news and action, then do consider following LFM on Twitter and Instagram, links of which are in the description. And if you want to be a part of the community even further, speak to some of the other sim racers that are amongst the community about everything ACC, sim racing, real life motorsport, you name it, then do consider joining the Discord server as well. So it'd be wonderful to see as many of you there as possible as this community continues to grow. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Apologies for the crash there at the end, but hopefully you did enjoy the rest of the amazing racing action that we had this evening at Suzuka. And join us again next week, same time, same place, for round 7 at Carl Army. So thank you so much everybody, but for now then, it's goodbye.